Danielle wasn't the kind of woman people noticed first. She was the one carrying grocery bags with tired hands, the one remembering birthdays, dropping off soup when someone was sick, sending money when someone whispered, "Things are a little tight right now." She was the quiet helper, the dependable daughter, the one everyone leaned on, until the year her family decided she was an extra in her own story. It happened 3 weeks before Christmas. Her mother's voice crackled through speakerphone while Danielle sat in the carpool lane waiting for her kids. "We're keeping things small this year, sweetheart. Just immediate family." Danielle smiled automatically. "Of course. I understand." Then she hung up. In the rearview mirror, her children were laughing over cookies they'd picked out at the store. She smiled back like nothing hurt, but one hand tightened around the steering wheel. Because sometimes pain doesn't arrive like thunder. Sometimes it slips in quietly, like realizing you've just been edited out of a picture that used to include you. Still, Danielle carried on. That night they baked cookies in their small apartment kitchen. Sugar dust covered the counter. Dollar store wrapping paper curled at the corners. Stockings hung from an old radiator because they didn't have a fireplace. Her daughter looked up and asked softly, "Santa knows where we live, right?" Danielle kissed her forehead. "Santa always finds us." And for a moment, she almost believed it too. Christmas morning arrived wrapped in silence. The kids sat in pajamas near the door, waiting for excitement to begin. Danielle reached for her phone. Big mistake. Photos filled her screen. Her sister-in-law had posted them online. "So blessed. Just family this year. Feeling grateful." Danielle stared. The dining room was overflowing. Neighbors were there. Friends were there. People she'd never even met were there. Everyone had a seat. Everyone except her. Her daughter walked over slowly. "Maybe they forgot our floor," she whispered. That was the moment something shifted. Not anger, not heartbreak, clarity. Because suddenly, Danielle understood something she'd spent years avoiding. She wasn't excluded because there wasn't enough room. She was excluded because they assumed she'd keep showing up no matter how little space they gave her. And for the first time, she decided not to. Days passed, her phone filled with messages. "You overreacted. You're being dramatic. Mom feels terrible. Why are you making this such a big deal?" Danielle didn't answer, because she was finally learning something powerful. Not every accusation deserves your energy. Not every misunderstanding needs your defense. Instead, she focused on her kids. She built blanket forts in the living room. They watched movies under strings of cheap yellow lights. They ate pancakes for dinner because her son declared breakfast tasted better at night. And somewhere between spilled cocoa and burnt cookies, Danielle noticed something. The apartment felt warm. Not because of the heater, because nobody there was pretending. Nobody was keeping score. Nobody was deciding who belonged. For years, she'd mistaken obligation for love. Now she was learning the difference. A few days later, an envelope arrived. Her mother's handwriting. Danielle sat by the window and opened it carefully. Inside were familiar words. "We never meant for things to happen like this. Family is complicated. You know we love you." Danielle read every line, then folded it quietly, because something was missing. 2 words. "I'm sorry." She placed the letter into a drawer with years of others. Birthday cards sent late. Holiday invitations arriving after plans were already made. Tiny pieces of affection that always felt slightly delayed, slightly incomplete. She closed the drawer, and with it, closed something inside herself too. Weeks later, an unexpected message arrived from her cousin Jasmine. They hadn't spoken in years. "I saw your post," Jasmine wrote. "I didn't know things were like that." Then, "If you ever want a fresh start, we've got room." Danielle stared at the words. "We've got room." Simple words, but they hit harder than anything else, because sometimes people spend years begging for space where they were never meant to fit. while another door stands open, quietly waiting. 30 days later, Danielle packed boxes. No announcements, no dramatic exits, no speeches, just 3 suitcases, 3 hearts, and a decision. Her kids thought moving felt like an adventure. Danielle thought it felt like breathing again. Their new apartment wasn't luxurious, but the walls were clean. The balcony overlooked mountains. Morning sunlight stretched across the kitchen floor, and for the first time in years, peace lived there. Her children adjusted quickly. Kids always do. They made friends, decorated paper lanterns, laughed louder, asked fewer difficult questions. Danielle noticed something else, too. No one walked on eggshells anymore. Months passed. Then one evening, a message appeared. Her mother again. "Maybe next Christmas we can celebrate together." Danielle looked at it for a long moment. No apology, no acknowledgement, just a bridge offered without admitting why it broke. And suddenly she understood something important. Healing doesn't always mean reopening doors. Sometimes healing means standing at the door and realizing you don't need to walk through it anymore. She archived the message, then returned to helping her daughter plant sunflowers outside. Life continued, quietly, beautifully. Spring arrived, then summer, then another winter. This Christmas looked different. No painful invitations, no waiting, no checking phones. The apartment glowed with paper lanterns and music from an old speaker. Dinner wasn't perfect. The pie crust burned. Someone spilled juice. Everyone laughed. Danielle looked around the table, her son grinning, her daughter covered in flour, warmth filling every corner. Then her daughter lifted her glass of sparkling cider. "To Mom," she said proudly. Danielle blinked, because she doesn't wait for magic. The little girl smiled. She makes it. Silence filled the room. Not empty silence, full silence. The kind that wraps around you and says, "You made it." Danielle looked around her small table and realized something extraordinary. For years, she fought for a seat in rooms where she wasn't valued. For years, she confused being needed with being loved. For years, she shrank herself to fit spaces too small for her heart. Not anymore, because the people who excluded her gave her something they never intended to give: freedom. Freedom to stop chasing, freedom to stop proving, freedom to build a life where love wasn't earned, only shared. And as snow drifted quietly outside the window, Danielle raised her own glass. Not to revenge, not to sadness, not even to the past, but to new beginnings, to peace, to choosing yourself, and to every person who's ever felt like the extra in someone else's story. Sometimes losing your place at their table is exactly how you learn to build your own.